book. It was challenging, the first one.
Because he wanted to be in the place of love.
Somebody came up with the idea.
And he was 100% accurate in his prediction.
Selenium, iodine, or calcium, you don't have to know any of that stuff. All you have to be able to do is chew.
So thank you for coming today. I'm going to be sharing with you ways of working with your intuition, ways of increasing that, ways of working with manifestation. And, you know, there's so much being shared in the media, in different books and tapes about how to increase our abundance, how to increase our ability to create. And a lot of this work is all done around how we do things mentally, how we do things emotionally, and work with the emotional body. And I'm going to talk to you today about the relationship we have to the emotional body, to the mental body, and to higher aspects of our being, and how to bring that all together, how to work with tools that actually help move the energy, that support us. Because there's so much going on in our environment today around the electromagnetic pollution that disconnects us, around the toxins in the environment that disconnect us, around the fear that's going on around the planet, and we're connected to everyone. There's an effect on us. Even what your cat does sometimes in the morning that upsets you has more an effect on how well you do at your job that day than the actual things you're working on. Because it's amazing what goes on inside our heads. And so as human beings, I'm going to show you at the beginning, I'm going to start kind of where I often end up, and that's to work with light and form and show you that there's more to us than just this physical body, which all of you really know. And yet, there's something I want to share if we can get the lights down enough. And they're going to support us in turning off those lights. Now, if someone would turn off the outside light, that doesn't happen. Let's see if this is dark enough to show you. You see, this universe was created by the Elohim, being light and spinning form. Form spinning within form, spinning within form. And as that form spins with the light, you start to see the patterns. Is it dark enough that you can see the energy? And as I broadcast energy to you, to connect to that higher aspect of your being, because that's what you are. You're that spark of light that comes out from Source. That light that is moving through the universe, connected to divine intelligence. Okay, you can turn the lights up now. You see, you're a spiritual being. That means that this body is something you're only using for a short while. It's the body of an animal. What that means is an animal body is something that is born, lives for a while, and dies. It has needs. It needs like food and water and air. It has hormones that we're getting used to as spiritual beings, and look how much that drives this world. It has an emotional body, because animals all have an emotional body that springs from fear. And that fear is what we need as an animal to survive, although as we're getting more of our higher consciousness come in, we don't need that fear. We don't need that anger, that resentment, that sadness, that pride. Those are all aspects of fear. You see, as spiritual beings, that emotional body acts like boots. that you would wear if you were going out into the ocean, the lead boots that hold you down on the bottom of the ocean. Well, that's what the emotional body is like. It helps us as spiritual beings coming from the highest level of being, coming from the level of source. It allows us to be here in this level of density. This is a density that universe is desiring to expand into. Universe wants to move into this level of density through us. We volunteered to be here. We've taken on the emotional body so we can be here without floating out, without popping out. And yet, that emotional body that allows us to be here is the same thing that disconnects us from Source. Because when you're angry, when you're upset, when you're worried, those emotions don't allow you to feel the love, to feel the consciousness that you are. And you see, when I'm talking about all the emotions come from one emotion, fear, that's what I mean, that fear disconnects us. And love is not an emotion. That's higher self coming through. And when you feel love, when you feel joy, when you feel happiness, that's your higher aspect saying you're on the right track. And there are many things being written today, like there's a great book called Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting that talks about the emotional body. Eckhart Tolle recently spoke about the emotional body and how much that gets in the way. And that's what I'm talking about too, is that emotional body stops us from connecting to Source. And Source is where we manifest from. That flow of energy from Source is where intuition comes from. It's where everything comes from. It's our lifeline in through our center, into our core, into our heart. And that is where all health, all everything comes from within you. All the other levels of universe, all the other levels of consciousness exist within you. You're on the outside edge of expanding universe. And this is our opportunity to be in this physical body, this dense body, the body of an animal, and bring through consciousness, bring through love, bring through well-being, to be of service. Because you see, the opportunity is to build this conduit, to build this channel of energy through us into this dimension. That's why we volunteered, said, I'll go do it. You know, it's not an easy thing because density is pretty dense. I mean, it slows you down. It's not easy to manifest stuff here. That's why everybody today is being pushed to that edge of, I know there's something more that I can be part of, that I can manifest. And there's talk about how you work with your emotions to do that, how you work with your mental. And when I say mental, I mean like the brain, it's an animal brain that's been because we don't have any other clues to go on, because we disconnect as we come in from Source. Because if we had that type of consciousness in this physical body, you could almost go crazy if you don't build it step by step, knowing how to connect to higher self. What I mean is that the ego is the aspect of us that starts working with the emotions and says, this is all I've got. I work with the fear, and that's why people, governments, organizations work with fear to control people. And what we're learning to do is saying, no, there's a better way to do it. There's more of a win-win way. We can work with consciousness. We can work with love. And so the aspect I was talking about earlier with the mind is like Eckhart Tolle, his first book was about Be Here Now. That was actually the name of Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now. And The Power of Now with Eckhart Tolle. What that's all about is disconnecting the mind. Because you see, the emotions block that flow of energy. On the mental level, the mind blocks that flow of energy. And by being in the moment, so that you're not worried about the past, you're not trying to create the future, you're right here, breath by breath by breath. That's where your power is. That's where you can work with that flow of energy. But you see, that energy that wants to flow is also controlled by our psychological nature. It's also controlled by the psychic nature that we have, where that's where we connect to this whole planet, and people on the other side of the planet undergo a tsunami, a hurricane, an earthquake, and there's something inside that goes out that feels those human beings. And, you know, the pain of it doesn't help anyone. I mean, when you worry about other people and what they're going through, that makes it worse for them. But when you help make a difference from a place of love, from a place of connection, then you can make a difference. You see, in talking about manifestation and talking about intuition, that's really what I'm leading to with all of this stuff, because the way you work with more intuition in your life is you get rid of the blockages of the emotional body, you get rid of the blockages that goes on with the mental body, what goes on all these levels. When that is out of the way and you're connected to that ball of spinning light that you truly are, that I was showing you at the very beginning, that is where that information comes from. Please turn off your telephones. You know, the only time I ever wear a watch is when I go and speak somewhere. And I grabbed all my watches. I went around through every drawer. Every one, the battery had run down. I didn't have any batteries. So I figured I'd bring my cell phone to tell me what time it is. Excuse me. You know, it's so fun to be human sometimes, isn't it? I mean, because we mess up. And then it's fun. You know, and we do things we think are really important, and it's fun. It's all fun. This is a joy to be here. It should be a joy, and if it's not, let's find the joy in it. And that's inside your heart. And that's where that energy comes from. And when you have that joy, you know you're on the right track, and that's where the intuition comes in. And so I'm going to share with you some forms that I've started working with. I've been doing this for 35 years. And the way this has come about is that probably about, oh gosh, over 35, 40 years ago, I started meditating and building pyramids and sleeping in them. And eventually I started moving so much energy through my body that I went through a lot of kundalini. Are you familiar with its energy coming up from the earth? It was moving through my feet so strongly I had holes being burned in my feet from just walking on the earth. And part of me was going, this is really neat because it's a physical effect, and I thought this subtle energy stuff was always subtle. But here it was a physical action that was happening. And manifestation is like that. I found out later you can manifest things physically. It's like a couple years ago I was skiing up in the mountains and I was in the trees, and I was starting to get upset with my guidance because I said, I'm doing all this stuff and it's all kind of up here, airy-fairy, and I want to feel something physical. I want to see it right now, right here in these trees. If I'm on the right track, I want you guys to show me something that I can pick up, I can touch, you know, I can feel with my senses. I skied over the next bump, and there was something lying in the snow, and I picked it up, and it was a flask. It was a flask that was full of peppermint schnapps, actually. And I turned it over, and there was a little disc on the front, and it had a name engraved on it, and it was my name. So I said, that's pretty good. And, I mean, it said Greg, and I said, well, I'm going by Gregory now, but, you know, I'll give you that one. So I didn't go out and then buy a lottery ticket and try to play that game, because I'm not here to play shell games with God. I don't test it like that. But the opportunity to serve, I know that, okay, when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'll be supported. When I'm here to serve other beings, serve animals, serve plants, serve the planet, serve the crystal kingdom, every aspect of this being, of this whole creation, when you serve, you're in turn served. It's the highest place to be. And so things like that happen again and again and again. And the more I've worked with some of these tools over the years, I've started being able to hear those voices more and more, to tune in to what's right, to be right there to tell what's going on with people. You know, it's like you can look at someone now. I can look at someone and just like I'm looking at you, and I'm feeling how the energy goes through, and feeling like one of the places where it sticks a little bit is around your throat, right? You know that. Because that's your truth wanting to come through, your power. There are so many women that are wanting to bring through information. I mean, men too, certainly. However, one of the keys is the pathway to spirit is through the feminine. You'll see that again and again. That openness to the masculine oneness is always through the feminine duality, is through the feminine softness, is through that understanding. And there are many women I come across that are having so much information, wanting to come through them, and it's being blocked right here in the throat. Often, sadly enough, it's because their fathers didn't listen to them when they were growing up. And that's part of what was going on with you. Your father couldn't hear you. He couldn't, could he?
No.
He didn't even have time.
It wasn't time.
It wasn't time, he just wouldn't recognize you.
It was who he was in this life.
It was who he was.
Oh, sure.
And so now you're taking us all to another step and working through this energy here to bring through your truth. And so what I'm saying is, a couple of years ago, I couldn't see that in people. And now it's so apparent. And it's so apparent because intuition and abundance is not something for us to work toward. It's something that's natural. It's something that's a gift. It's something that's given when you get into your heart, when you get into your core, when you touch your soul, because that's who you are. You are everything that's out here. And those are pretty words, but I don't want to just stay with pretty words. That's why I build tools to support people. Because a tool is like a hammer. It's like if you go to build a house and someone says, hey, you know, you don't depend upon anything. You're a magnificent being. Do it yourself. And you go, well, hey, I need a hammer to pound the nails. When I'm done building the house, maybe I hit my thumb. It's not the hammer's fault. It's not the hammer's fault that I built the house. Matter of fact, I'm the one that built the house. The hammer was only there as a tool that helped. And so it is with these. They're tools that support people in the process of growing, in the process of creating that flow of energy that I'm talking about. I mean, again, it's nice words, but you want to create that flow through your body into this planet. So, there are things like this is a tool, a form. You see, the geometries are the language of this dimension that connect with Source. That's why everything is geometric in nature. You see the way plants are made, animals, minerals. It all is reflecting the natural order of energy coming from Source. So when we build that in this dimension, we can create resonance, like a C tuning fork that will resonate with a C tone. These are forms that resonate with energy on a higher level. So if I put this down at your feet, if you notice something, you can tell me. And then I'll put this over your head.
I feel a cone.
You feel a cone. And you're touching your throat.
Yeah, I can feel something in there.
You can feel something in there. You can feel the energy. You see, energy will move to where you need it to move. Energy wants to flow. Universe wants to flow. If there's any metaphor for creation, it's flow. Energy, universe, creation, love wants to flow. You block it, and there's a problem. As a matter of fact, every disease, every problem, every difficulty you have in your life is a reflection of some place where you've denied or blocked that flow of energy from source, from who you are.
You know, the whirlpool of the energy is, it's like it's going up through me.
The whirlpool of the energy is going up through you. But you felt your throat at first, where we talked about you having an issue, and that started opening it up. Correct? Okay. Yes. So, you see, you can have something that could be with you for decades and decades. An issue that ultimately you can't ever blame anything else for where you are. There's no point in that. Anyway, it only disempowers you. The more responsibility you take for creating your parents, for creating your friends, for creating your life, the more power you have to change it. And so, how do you feel now?
I was in I feel much more awakened now.
Much more awakened?
Yeah, from the previous sessions I had been in like an altered state almost.
Uh-huh.
And even after I had a bite to eat, but now somehow I feel empowered.
You feel empowered.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you know your power is behind wherever you have an issue, wherever you have something that feels like a blockage that's not flowing in your body, your power is right behind that spot. Wherever you have a fear in your life, your power is right behind that fear. Fear is a very funny thing. It's like this giant 20-foot wolf that wants to gobble you up, but it's around the corner. And if you have enough strength to go around that corner to face that 20-foot wolf, you pass the corner, and it's a chihuahua about this big. You know, and you go, hey man, if I had known you were so tiny when I finally faced you, I mean, I can step on you. Because you're the one that created the fear. It's illusion. It's the absence of the light. It's the absence of your knowledge. It's the absence of your power. That's why it works. You know, fear is something that when you go around the corner, it's this big and you can step on it because it's not real. Your power, when you finally step into it, allows you to take those fears and not let them bother you. And behind that fear, that's where the flow of energy happens. You can't just sort of, kind of create abundance in your life without dealing with all these things that are blocking it. And so I want to show you some of the other things that I'm working with. One of the things that I've started working with is finding a way that I can move this into a form that people could wear all the time. And so I created a two-dimensional pendant with two sides. Now, this two-dimensional pendant, because there's more energy coming through the language of 3 dimensions in this universe, I found a way of creating a two-dimensional form that would work with 3-dimensional energy. See, going from one dimension to another, it's like when I talk about going into these higher dimensions, it's like if you could think about a 2-dimensional being that was in a book. I mean, we all know what books are like. Some people in other countries in the world aren't familiar with 2 dimensions. And they don't know how to read perspective in a book or perspective in reality. Like, there was once a study with pygmies in a rainforest where they were put out on the plain, and they saw an elephant in the distance, and then they saw the elephant get closer, and because they weren't used to perspective, they thought that the elephant was magically growing. Yeah, it sounds funny now, but you know, that's the way their heads work. Well, 2 dimensions, it's like if we don't learn how to read a book, and here's a man standing in a book like this, and he turns to look over there to the door, he'd disappear because he doesn't have any thickness. And we can figure that out. And if you met a 2-dimensional being, you say, in my world, you can jump over things and go under things. They'd say, no, that's impossible. And you say, let me show you. You jump over him, he would only see you disappear and reappear behind him. And so going from 2D to 3D, going into 4D, going into 5D, going into 6D, going into 7D, where soul resides, it's so different. I can only say that I have experienced some of those places. Many of you have had glimpses of it. That's what intuition is about. When you go into the 5th dimension, time doesn't exist in the same way. You can bend it on itself. You can start seeing things happening simultaneously to the now, in the future, and in the past. And so it's possible to know what's going on with seeing your father or seeing what's going to happen. Some people can do that. Is it true seeing? It's moving where you are now into an expanded aspect of yourself. So that's what I'm saying. When you work with a tool that can expand this aspect of who you are into a higher dimension, it's possible to have some of these things that are totally natural, of that seeing, of that knowing. Because when you're able to move to a higher dimension, you can watch yourself. And, you know, that's a miracle in itself, because we don't see ourselves real well. We can see other people and say, I know what your problem is. But anybody tries to say, well, what about you? And you go, hey, don't touch that, man. You know? And another thing is we take this thing too seriously. We get so involved in this character. I said this is an animal body. It's only going to be, we all know it's only going to be here a short while. Let's not take it so seriously. Let's be able to watch and learn and grow. And that's when other people, you know, can poke at us, and we can learn when we're watching from this higher dimension, not take it seriously. Then we have more power. That's what intuition is about. That's what manifestation is about. It's like, I was up skiing again a few years ago, and it was good packing snow. So I packed a snowball, and across the road there were these 2 aspen trees going up. So I just took a snowball, just threw it, and hit one of the aspen trees dead center about 12 feet above the ground. And then I packed another one, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to hit the other tree exactly at the same height, even with the first one across the road? So I packed the snowball, and I threw it, and the only thought that was going through my head as I was letting go of that snowball was, there's no reason this shouldn't happen. And it did. And then I didn't test it again. Because then that question comes into your head. And that question is exactly what sabotages us all the time. And so to be in that moment, to be in that second. So let me show you what's going on with the energy of this pendant. Would you like to help me with that? Okay, come on up here. Okay, why don't you stand like this? Are you familiar with kinesiology?
Yes.
Okay. So for those of you who aren't, it's like, I'm going to press down and give me some resistance. Good. Now, say your name. Say, my name is?
Joe.
Say, my name is Joe.
My name is Joe.
Okay, see how strong you are? Mm-hmm. Now, make up another name. Say, my name is?
My name is Tim.
See, your body gets weak. What happens is, when you tell a lie, when you're not connected to your truth, when you're not connected to your heart, when you have something in your body that's not serving you, like, you know, you put some food or something that isn't making you feel good, you disconnect and you get weak. So think of something that makes you unhappy or sad, okay? Do you have that thought?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, see, there's no strength in there. Okay, now be strong. See how strong you are? I'm pressing really hard. And now, if 2 of you over there were talking about the war in Iraq, that's what happens. if there's a TV going somewhere that's talking about pollution on the planet, that's what happens to his body. Okay, how about all the politics going on right now? That's what happens to his body. Goes into, disconnects from his power. So here, no, just hang on to this. Okay, this is one of these pendants that I'm talking about. Now be strong again, okay? Now, okay, let's talk about politics. Okay, something about pollution on the planet. War in Iraq. Think of the thing that made you unhappy. Okay. You see, all of this stuff, like the electricity, the EMFs disconnects us. The toxins disconnect us. Our own emotional body that I was talking about earlier, it disconnects us from source. This is a tool that keeps that energy flowing all the time. So source energy is going through you. And when source energy flows through you, that's where your ability to manifest, your ability to create, your ability to experience love, to do everything as far as your health. It's all about flow. That's what I said earlier. So this tool creates that flow. It has two sides because, you see, this side, when that's toward your body, the energy is flowing up. And it's more mental and focused. This side, when that's toward your body, the energy is flowing down into your heart and into the earth. You see, the way we run energy through our body is it either runs up like this, out and around, and back up again. It's a large torus, like a large donut, and we're at the core of it. Women run the energy mostly through their head, down through their body, and out through their feet. That's why women are more in their hearts, more connected to their feelings, more connected to the earth. Men run the energy in the opposite direction, like this. That's why men are more aggressive, more out there, more mental. That's why you sometimes say to a man, can't you just get into your feelings a little bit more? Can't you get more connected down here and know what's going on in your heart? And men are saying, hey, can't you just fix this and figure this out? Let me show you. You know, it's the way we're running the energy. It happens just by virtue of the way it flows through us. So, this, you can control that energy flow in your body and work with it consciously. Now, what's something that you're working on in your life to create right now?
An understanding of energy work.
An understanding of energy, but is there a project or something that you're working on that you'd like to manifest and create?
Better me.
Well, but something on the physical dimension. I mean, something you're working on, a project or something that would be nice to...
No physical projects yet.
Okay. Something that you're doing at work or something that you'd like to change in your life?
There are several.
Well, share one,
Okay.
and we'll...
Particularly with my private practice, I'd like to expand it a little bit.
Okay. That's a good... Here, step this way, Joe. All right. So, it was fun. I was doing this just 2 weeks ago with Louise Hay. Magnificent woman, a grand dame, I think, of this whole movement of understanding of how we manifest with intent and focus. And she did the same things. Okay, so you're going to expand your practice. Let's make a positive statement. And, you know, that's what we like to do in our positive affirmations. So let's say you're successfully expanding your business, okay? All right, so why don't you make that statement out loud?
I am successfully expanding my business.
You were trying. Okay, now hang on to that. Now make that statement again.
I am successfully expanding my business.
You see that difference? You see, it's like, it's a loaded question. Because what it's loaded with is inside you're going, okay, how, when, Where? Why? You know, we question everything. That's the nature of all this stuff up here. And the questioning stops the flow. If I had questioned the throwing of that snowball, it would have missed the tree by a mile. Or at least a foot or more. Point is, you know, we don't create from the questioning. And even though there's a lot said about positive statements, we can say them again and again and again and again, and there's something that sabotages them inside. It could be our own questioning. It could be that the cat peed on the rug this morning. You know, or it could be something that has nothing to do with the reality of expanding the business, but we're so affected by all this stuff around us. We are such complex beings that to create a flow through everything, psychologically, psychically, physically, emotionally, mentally, and to hold that space, and to hold that space, and to juggle all those balls when all of this life is going on, when the lights and all the technology that we've created in this universe from a place of ego, and what I mean by that, it's a place of lesser understanding. So the technologies we're working with now are killing us, are separating us, are not serving us. Sure, we get around faster. Sure, we're doing a few more things. Sure, we're making some money and people are trying to get more power, but what's trying to get the power? You know, inside doesn't need power. So all these things that are driving us, you know, even that we think, thank you, Joe, even these things that we think are going to make us happy, it becomes something where let's connect to where true happiness is. And then it comes into your life. Then you're able to manifest. Then you're able to ground. Then you're able to do all of these things that we're always aspiring to do, but we're aspiring to do it from a place where we're almost doomed to failure to begin with. I mean, what a dirty trick. We're spiritual beings that come into this physical body, and then we got to start protecting ourselves from where we've just come into, because we're going about systematically killing ourselves, and people are then trying to make money off of other people in the whole process. The way food is created isn't from the highest place. The way education, the way health, the way all these things are not done from a place of higher consciousness. They're getting there. But you aren't going to change any of the systems to a better system by trying to change the system. You aren't going to create, you know, it's like what Einstein said, you can't solve the problem coming and using the same set of information and tools that created the problem. You have to step outside into a new paradigm. And that's what I'm talking about here. Moving to this higher dimensional place is a way of working with energy from a new paradigm, from a new way of looking at who you are. Understanding that you're a spiritual being that can be, you know, empowered to create what you want to create. And it happens. Believe me, it happens. And that love happens. Yes, a question.
Does this candle protect from electromagnetic fields?
It does help. The question was, does it protect from electromagnetic fields? It does help, very much so, in bringing you into a place where you're much stronger. However, I have created some forms that are more dealing with that. First of all, it's impossible to protect or block all the EMFs because we're creating trillions of watts in the next few years. So I've created something that starts to take all the ambient chaotic energy, bring it into coherence, and we run it through the body, and it starts in these forms, and it starts to take the body apart and put it back together in a right way. I mean, there's so many things that have been broken within us as we get older. I hung this form up a couple weeks ago in my home, and my wife said that I have two daughters we adopted from China that are 10 and 8 now, and she said they stopped arguing as much. And then I had to go to another show, so I took it with me to another show because I hadn't made another one yet. She said, bring it back. They started arguing. They started hassling me again. And so I've had some other intuitives tune into it. It's a very, very powerful piece. This does help, and yet this other piece is more powerful, but it can't be worn near the head or the heart because it creates such a strong field. It can be worn, I'm going to call it a bracelet. It's going to work on the wrist and the ankle. I'll have those by Christmas. But the point is, this does help, but it's more important rather than to go for protection, which is a lower level thought form. I mean, just think, here we are, spiritual beings trying to make the world bad and protect ourselves from it. Better, you should move yourself to a higher level and be here so you're not pulled in by the negative things. You aren't creating in your life, drawing in the people that don't serve you, drawing in the things that are vibrating at a lower level. That's where the problems come in, because we create those problems because we're blocking that flow of higher energy coming through, and that higher energy only reflects and pulls into itself, you know, that like energy, that energy of love. I'm being asked to stop, so, I mean, we have a timeline here. I was going to see if there are any more questions. So, bottom line, I have a booth at 411 in the Grand Ballroom. You walk in and you'll see a lot of spinning forms. And so, I invite you to come and experience the forms. If you wish to work with some of the pendants, I let people wear them during the show. I even let people take them home and try them and hold their credit cards, just so you prove to you that it's real. And it always proves itself to people that it's real. You know, you have to know on your own terms what works for you. And these are tools that support you in your spiritual growth. That's ultimately why we're here, to grow in love and bring more love into the planet. So thank you.
I had never written a book. It was challenging, the first one.
Because he wanted to be in the place of love.
Somebody came up with the idea.
And he was 100% accurate in his prediction.
Selenium, iodine, or calcium. You don't have to know any of that stuff. All you have to be able to do is chew.